Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.
Playoff Jimmy Butler gave the Heat the early advantage in the Eastern Conference Finals over the Boston Celtics. The PGA Championship boasts yet another star-studded field, but the biggest story might be the player who isn't there, and the Thunder have the most enviable position in the NBA draft. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the stories you need to know and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Playoff Jimmy Butler in full effect in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Boston Celtics. Miami takes it 118-107 thanks to 41 from Jimmy Butler. Joining me now from the arena in Miami, Wes Goldberg. And Wes, this was a game in which Boston outscored the Heat in 3 of the 4 quarters, but it was that pivotal third quarter where the Heat outscored Boston 39-14. What was the difference?
Well, it was a 22-2 run in that third quarter right out of halftime, and the biggest difference was Jimmy Butler. I mean, you mentioned the points there, but just as big, you could argue, were the 4 steals and the 3 blocks, and it kind of got Miami. It set the tone for that Heat defense, which really swung the game for them in that third quarter. It wasn't just Jimmy Butler, right? As soon as he started doing that stuff, the Heat perimeter players were pressuring the Celtics ball handlers. We're not letting them even get it off past half court. I think they had 7 steals and 5 blocks in the third quarter alone, which is just like bananas. And that swung the game. And from that point on, the Celtics couldn't really find a rhythm, even though they made a little bit of a run in that fourth quarter. But the offense just completely changed, shut down for Boston, and Miami was able to score off of transition opportunities, and their defense was able to get set, and that was the biggest change in the game.
To what degree do you think not having Marcus Smart and Al Horford in this game for Boston impacted what Miami was able to do, especially offensively, given what we saw Marcus Smart, the defensive player of the year this season, Al Horford, what he was able to do in just this last series against the best player in the world?
Yeah, I mean, nothing against Al Horford, but Robert Williams actually had a really nice game stepping up in his place, and Grant Williams was not great, but Robert Williams did so much defending the paint. He was, I think, the only Celtics player to have a positive plus-minus in the game. But they definitely missed Marcus Smart, right? They definitely missed Marcus Smart, not just because of the defensive stuff, and Tyler Hero kept Miami's offense afloat in that first half. You wonder if that would have been different if Marcus Smart were in there if you're the Celtics, but they also missed his playmaking quite a bit. He's done such a good job of progressing in that area this season. And while Derek White has been a nice addition that they got at the trade deadline, he's not really the table setter the way that Marcus Smart has been. And you saw Jason Tatum have to take on so much responsibility of facilitating and getting that offense put together. And when the Heat, again, started pressuring the ball and just made it hard for him to even dribble, it just made everything so much harder. It had sort of a domino effect across Boston's offense.
One thing, just bringing it back from what we were talking about with Al Horford last series, no Chris Middleton meant Jason Tatum did not have to take on the defensive assignment game in and game out. When you are the Heat and you have this slew of wings who you have to worry about scoring, even if Duncan Robinson, gets relegated to sideline duty for much of these games, when you have Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero and we hope eventually Kyle Lowry, it adds the burden to him. How do you think the matchups will change moving forward for Boston to try and get some help to guard Jimmy Butler, who is 12 of 19 in this game, 17 of 18 at the free throw line?
Yeah, and he got to the free throw line at will, and they were so happy to just look. Boston, their base defense is, hey, we're going to switch everything, and we trust our defenders to go one-on-one. And it felt like Jimmy Butler had a little bit of a hard time in the first half with it. He was getting rushed. He wasn't really getting to his spots. The second half, that completely flipped. He was much more patient. He was willing to get to his spots. He was able to find guys like Peyton Pritchard, who are not as stout defensively as Tatum or Jaylen Brown, and then get to those spots. But also, there was times where he just bumped Robert Williams right out of the way and was like, this is my basket now, and went ahead and got it. When he starts to slow down and just sort of process things in that way, he's just so difficult to guard. I don't know what Boston does with Jimmy Butler at this point, because do you want to double him? Okay, go ahead, double him. But now you are sort of going away from all of your principles that kind of got you here if you're the Celtics. And now you're maybe potentially opening things up for Miami's other shooters, whether it be Max Strus or Tyler Hero or PJ Tucker out of the corner. And that's what great players do, right? There is no just clear, hey, just make this adjustment. Jimmy Butler has made it very obvious in this postseason. Whether you think he is a top-level star or not, he's playing like one, and defenses have to treat him like that.
Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, PGA insider Bob Herrig breaks down the PGA Championship. Here's what to look for on BetOnline, your number one spot for all your daily gambling needs. How about some series odds for the Stanley Cup second round? The Carolina Hurricanes are favored over the happy-to-be-there New York Rangers. BetOnline has the Hurricanes odds to win it at -195, and the Calgary Flames are heavily favored to win the battle for Alberta against the Edmonton Oilers. BetOnline has the money line set at -205 for the Flames. BetOnline, where the game starts. The Orlando Magic were going to be represented by President of Basketball Operations Jeff Weltman on stage on Tuesday at the NBA's draft lottery, but early Tuesday morning, a switch was made because of a feeling Jamal Mosley had. Turns out the audible worked, as the Magic won the lottery for the fourth time in franchise history and will pick first in June's 2022 NBA draft. I haven't been very good at this, Weltman told reporters via video conference. It's funny, Coach was feeling lucky and we let him roll the dice tonight, and he's the Coach of the Year. Orlando had a 14% chance to get the top pick, along with the Houston Rockets and Detroit Pistons. It's the Magic's first chance to pick number one overall since 2004, when they selected Dwight Howard. Matt Harvey, the veteran starting pitcher who has struggled to replicate his early career stardom with the New York Mets, was handed a 60-game suspension on Tuesday for distributing a prohibited drug of abuse and thus violating Major League Baseball's drug program. Harvey's suspension is tied to his testimony in the February trial of former LA Angels communications director Eric Kay, who faces a minimum 20-year prison sentence related to the sudden death of pitcher Tyler Skaggs. Harvey acknowledged, while under immunity from criminal conviction, to being a cocaine and oxycodone user and occasionally providing Skaggs with oxycodone pills when he played for the Angels in 2019. The Florida Panthers are once again down 1-0 in a playoff series, this time to the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Special teams cost the Panthers this game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. What is up, guys? This is Armando Velez from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, and the Florida Panthers dropped their first game of this best-of-7 series against the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 4-1, losing home ice advantage already after one game. And with 14 penalty infraction minutes and giving the Tampa Bay Lightning 6 power play opportunities, the Florida Panthers were putting themselves in a bad position when they were out of position, causing them the penalties, a few high stick calls and a few lack of composure penalties as well for the Cats as well. That's what caused the Florida Panthers to have so many of being down a man in this one. And the Tampa Bay Lightning score on 3 of the 6. And that was the recurring theme last year when the Tampa Bay Lightning went 40% on the power play in their round 1 series the year before. So something's got to change, and the power play as well for the Panthers. Now 0 for 21 in the postseason, 0 for 3 tonight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Something's got to change, and we got a lot to talk about as far as that, because if this continues for the Florida Panthers where they're having an 0 for on the man advantage, then they're not going to come out of this series against the two-time Stanley Cup champions. So listen to my recap of this 4-1 loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Make sure to join me and Jacob Winans on the Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your first listen of the day.
And in the latest installment of Holy Name and Likeness, Batman, the state of Ohio has voted down NIL measures for high school athletes. There are 9 states that currently have name and likeness measures in place for high schoolers, including Alaska, California, Colorado, Kansas, Louisiana, Nebraska, New Jersey, New York, and Utah. A simple majority of 817 schools, which would mean 409 yes votes, was required to pass the measure. Only 254 schools voted in favor. We have a major championship in golf this weekend at Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Joining us now, longtime golf writer and the author of Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry, Bob Herrig, is on the grounds at Southern Hills. And Bob, this is a tournament that we generally get awesome fields. This week is no different. How is this golf course going to differentiate between these guys? What is going to separate the top players this week?
I think it's some of the usual things we see at the big tournaments like this, especially the harder ones, the ones that are set up tougher. Is, you better limit your mistakes, and when you do make them, you better try to not compound them. If you hit it, if you miss a green, you have to accept the idea that maybe you're going to have to make some 4 and 5 footers to save par. I think chipping is really important. You're not going to hit, you're not going to hit 15, 16, 17 greens. You're going to miss some, and where you miss it's important. So, and it sounds like here, based on what the players have been saying, the runoffs of these greens, it's not deep rough. So the ball's going to roll a little bit. Now you're faced with a pitch shot that's going to really sort of test their skills. So I think the guys who do that the best, who get it close a lot, get it up and down, that's a key to it, is keeping the round going. So length never hurts. It's a long course, 7,500 yards, only, par 70. Both par 5s are over 600. So, some of the long hitters might be able to get to them, but most of the guys are going to have to play them as a 3-shot hole. Obviously trying to take advantage of those scoring opportunities will be important as well.
We mentioned this when we had you on to talk about the Masters. One of the big storylines is the guy that's not here, and he is the defending champion in this case, Phil Mickelson. There were some players who had mentioned in interviews that they thought we'd see Phil this week, at the very least, to defend his title. His comments related to the Saudi-backed league have been part of what's keeping him away from the game. But how surprised are you that we don't see Lefty this week?
Well, I think it's a nuanced answer. I mean, I'm surprised in the sense that he's physically able, and this is very, very unusual, that a defending champion doesn't defend unless he's injured, which happens. But even that's rare. The last time that happened at the PGA was in 2008 when Tiger couldn't defend because he had knee surgery. The last time it's happened in any major is 2015 when Rory couldn't defend the PGA. Couldn't defend the Open at St. Andrews because he had injured his ankle in a freak soccer playing accident. Mm-hmm. So this is it's rare to begin with. It's even more rare because he chose not to, and now it's 2 majors this year, a reigning major champion. So, but when you consider the totality of all that's going on, and all the negativity and all the backlash and the fact that he'd have to face the media and he hasn't played and maybe he's not ready to face his peers. And we don't even know if he's made amends with the PGA Tour. Probably not. There's growing evidence that he's going to go play that first live golf event outside of London. When you add all that in, then it's not that surprising because he's probably not ready. And this was going to be it's a hard week to begin with. Now you throw all that in, and I think it makes a little bit more sense that he's not here.
Finally, here, barring a setback, it looks like Tiger Woods is going to tee it up, and he's already won once at Southern Hills. The field was a little different if you go back and look at that leaderboard, but I asked you to set reasonable expectations at Augusta. We felt like, okay, because that's a track he knows so well, he's so familiar there that he's going to make the cut. He always makes the cut at Augusta. This is a different animal. It is going to require him to actually hit his driver a bunch. And because it's a long course, that's going to mean a physical toll on his body. Mm-hmm. What do you think is success? He's going to say it's winning or competing. For you, what would be success for Tiger Woods this week?
I think making the cut again is a great accomplishment because unlike the Masters where there was only 92 players, I think, top 50 make the cut. 20 of the 90 are probably not competitive. They're either past champions or amateurs who are not expected to do well. So really he only had to beat 20 guys, to make the cut. Now he made it by more than plenty. So he beat more than that. He did very well to make the cut. Struggled on the weekend, I think mostly due to the weather. It was very cold and that's not good for him. Here, 70 in ties make the cut, I believe is what it is. 156 starting player field. Yes, there's club pros in the field, 20 of them, but most of the rest are, highly ranked players, except for a few past champions in the field. Tiger's going to have one of the lowest world rankings of anybody here, and so he's got to play to make it, and it's going to be harder than the Masters in that regard. So. I think that's a great goal for him to make it again. Those are reasonable expectations. That's decent golf. You're going to have to play some decent golf to make it, and then go from there. Then I think the next goal becomes, all right, let's have a better weekend than you had at Augusta. Let's see if you can move up the board a little bit. You're right. He's talking about, I feel like I can be competitive, that sort of thing. But I think we have to take the longer view given what he's all been through.
He is the author of Tiger and Phil, Golf's Most Fascinating Rivalry. So few people better equipped to help us answer these questions about Tiger and Phil than you, Bob. We appreciate the time.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Coming up, the Oklahoma City Thunder are sitting pretty for this year's NBA draft. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting and then opening your eyes and realizing that was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. That's what it is like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built. I just got my birthday cake puff box, and I've never had anything like this before. They're available right now, and we can't promise that they're going to be there tomorrow, so go get them today at Built.com. You're used to protein bars covered in milk chocolate. I get it. The birthday cake puff bar is covered in white chocolate, 100% real chocolate, I will add. And I don't know how they make it healthy, but they do. They're made with collagen protein, which helps your body absorb the protein more efficiently. Go to Built.com to get birthday cake puffs now. Go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Now on to Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players. I use it for my fantasy football leagues. And now you could win on Sleeper by playing their new over-under game. It's simple. In any sport, choose two or more players that you like and pick the over or the under. For example, points in basketball, hits in baseball, then choose the amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times to over 20 times the money you put in. Download Sleeper now to play their new over-under game on your mobile phone. Join our listener group at sleeper.com/lockedon today. And Sleeper will automatically match your first deposit up to $100. Again, go to sleeper.com/lockedon today, and you'll get a $100 deposit match on that first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. The Oklahoma City Thunder didn't get the first pick in the draft, but they did get the second. They also have something most other teams don't, another lottery pick this year and a slew of first-round picks in upcoming drafts. Locked on Thunder host Rylan Stiles loves the position this puts OKC in.
Yeah, this was actually the third most likely scenario. The most likely scenario was that the Thunder would fall to pick 6, and that would have been a disaster. So realistically, going from 6 to 2 is a big deal. And for the Thunder in this draft class, it's all about getting that top 3. There's a consensus top 3, although Sam Presti did say today before the lottery that their draft board is not consensus whatsoever, and he hopes it never is consensus. So maybe there's a trick up his sleeve, so to say. But just having the leverage of having the number 2 overall pick is huge because only one player can go before you, and you really control the draft after about the 5-minute mark on draft day.
And it's cool because it's one of those years where not everybody's looking for one guy, right? Like there's 2 to 3, there's 3 names out there that people are kind of all mixed up about depending on who their team is. Is there one guy that definitely fits perfectly with the Thunder, or are they just going to take, one of the 2 best available guys?
Well, the Thunder really need a center, to kind of tie in this rebuild, although they're still in that mode of their rebuild where you're not looking necessarily for position, just best player available. However, Chet Holmgren not only fits the center need, but also the prototype of a player that Sam Presti's looked for a long time, trading up to get Pokusevski, taking a shot on a guy who's 7 feet with ball handling skills, can block shots. That sounds a lot like Chet Holmgren, only Chet Holmgren's like the brand name version of Pokusevski. So I think that Chet, if he's there, would be hard to pass up on for Sam Presti.
Is there any possibility that because this pick is in such high demand, they could trade it, or do you feel like they're definitely keeping this?
I think surprisingly enough, there would be a way to trade it. It would just come down to how Sam Presti views Shaedon Sharpe. If you believe him that his board is not consensus, then maybe, Shaedon Sharpe, the biggest mystery in the draft, is his guy. And it would be a reach to take him at 2 so it can go into the realm of we get Shaedon Sharpe at pick 5 and then y'all get your guy at pick 2, whether that be Chet or Paolo. But in all actuality, I would imagine that the Thunder just keep this pick and select it 2.
I get what Rylan is saying. But at the same time, look at what is going on in Philadelphia, the process, and what is now left of the process. It's Joel Embiid and whatever you think James Harden can be, who they're now going to have to pay a boatload of money. They turned Ben Simmons, who was part of the process, into James Harden, and they had to give up pieces, let's not forget, Andre Drummond and Seth Curry, to bring James Harden to Philadelphia. They tried to do the thing that Sam Presti is attempting in Oklahoma City. Bottom out, get all of the picks, and then try and build a roster with a war chest of draft capital. And it's okay this year because the number 2 pick may turn out to be really valuable. This is a draft class that probably goes 4, 5, 6, 8 deep. There is no ultra elite player in this class. There's no Zion. There's no Anthony Davis. There's no LeBron, no Dwight Howard, who we mentioned earlier in the show. But what if this were that draft and you got the second pick, despite the fact that your team is not exactly full of talent, although Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a star player, but they're not anywhere near competing for anything real in the Western Conference. And they're not really that much closer than they were when they traded Paul George. So what exactly are they building? And you try and take these swings so that you can get Joel Embiid, so that you can get Ben Simmons, so that you can get Anthony Davis or Zion Williamson. Well, what happens now that the NBA has flattened these odds? If you get the second pick and there's no number 1 pick for you to try and go up and get, even if you wanted to, even with all this draft capital. The thing about all these first round picks is they are really valuable until you have to use them. And then you could be the team that takes Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. And all of a sudden, the idea of that even number 1 overall pick is suddenly a lot less appealing. And finally, Brooks Koepka is ready for the PGA Championship, so long as he can get to the first tee on time. Koepka was an hour late for his pre-tournament news conference because he locked his keys in the car, or as he insisted, his caddy locked his keys in the car. PGA Tour players, they really are just like us. At least he didn't jam his hand in the car door or something. That would have been worse. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Now go make your second listen Locked On NBA. From the first jump ball of the play-in tournament to the last possession of the finals, Locked On experts take you deep inside the playoffs with insight and analysis affecting all 30 teams. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Coming up Thursday, will the Warriors or the Mavericks catch the first advantage in the Western Conference Finals? And at least until tomorrow, stay locked on today.
Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey present Locked On Sports Today.